right, so here we are today. We're going to talk about the big thing that travel baseball gets crushed with all the time is that, it's all about the individual. It's become about, and it's gotten away from the team concept within baseball, which, is there some truths that probably come to that on a surface level? Yes. But really, that's what we're trying to do here, to get people to realize the responsibility needed, and that forever and always, it will always be a team game first, and it's a team mindset, the individual prospers. So we're going to try to bring that back to travel ball, to have everyone understand that it is about the team first and not about the individual. So what do you guys got on that?
I mean, the big thing for me is if you're planning for something bigger than yourself, usually you're going to be the one that prospers because of it. That was a big thing that we promoted with our 2014 this past summer and fall was play for each other, and individually you're going to benefit from that.
Which, by the way, quite a bit of, team success.
Yeah.
When top 5 of every ranking there is, and the record. What was the overall record for the year? 60-12 or something.
Yeah,
something.
Year. I think it was maybe 8 actually, 60 something.
And then even how many commits ended up happening?
Yeah, I think
15,
15, I think, and then now I think we're at 16.
So wow, look at even just right there, a microcosm example of when you put the team first, the individuals prosper and get their own as well with it, right? So give some examples of what some of the stuff, some real life examples that happened this summer.
Perfect example is we had guys that either got injured or couldn't make a tournament because they were sick or something like that. So we had guys who basically just volunteered to play out of position, and if you're just worried about yourself, or the parents are worried about just their kid, they might have a problem saying, well, my kid's only a third baseman or only a second baseman. And our team, that never really was an issue. It was, hey, coach, wherever you need me, I'll go out there that day.
So Jesse, 20 years now, right? And 13 years as a head coach at a high school that was USA Top 25 today for over half your time while you were there, right? You ran into a lot of situations like this, and parents try to tell you, well, hey, if he can't play left field, he needs to play shortstop because that's going to affect. Did that happen? And dive into some of that.
Yes, it has unfortunately happened, but fortunately for us, we had a good track record of winning, so I was usually able to get a little leeway with some of that stuff, and get people to buy in a little bit easier. But the biggest thing is you just try to reiterate to the player first, and then you hope they can pass it on to the parent, and then talk to the parents. Just like you said, it's about the team first, and we're trying to put our best 9 guys out there to help us win the game. It doesn't matter what position it is. There's been times where I've had a guy that practiced second base all year for us, but he was so good in practice and was such a good team guy and made the team so much better. I just threw him out in right field one game and said, hey man, I know you've never played right field before, but you're doing everything we need. You're doing the little things we need, and I need you in the lineup, but I also need a guy that's playing your position in the lineup. So you're going to play right field, and I just need you to catch the routine fly ball. You don't have to do anything else, and just be yourself and do what you do offensively and be the person you are. So, as coaches, it isn't necessarily we're looking for our best shortstop or best second base. We're looking for the best 9 guys. And, you've probably heard it before is if you help the team win, we're going to find a spot out there for you.
And, let's be frank here. A lot of times it's about the best 9 bats you can get in there.
Oh, yeah.
And I know both of us in some of our most successful high school seasons, I know when we were playing each other, you had guys in left field, I had guys in left field that were infielders. But to give us both our best 9, it was, hey man, to get all of us in here, you're the best option in left, or you're the best option in right. And both of us had success with that, and the players always bought in because the end result is they all want to hit.
Mm-hmm. Well, and here's the thing too, right? The common thread that you guys are saying left and right is buy in, right? So we get that there's a lot of trust that parents and players have to put into us or any of their coaches for their individual career to develop and move on beyond high school, right? But how many times have you guys had where a guy doesn't start for you when you were coaching high school or you currently, but yet he's actually going to play in college? Does that happen every year?
Every
year,
the time.
Right? So there's a perfect example of saying it's not just trust, but here's the track record of it. Yeah, he's going to play in college. And does that college program, did they ever call him and go, oh my gosh, he's not starting for you, in no way I have to pull a scholarship? I've never seen that happen, right? Because
yeah, like you said, I mean, it's really just whatever fits that team dynamic. that college might be looking for something different at a position than what he might need in that high school season or that travel ball season. I mean, I don't think any college coach has ever said, "Oh man, he knows how to play way too many positions. I don't like it." I've never heard that, you know. And to me, you're really just building something for when you do get to college by going out and doing some of those other things. Because, you know, I mean, some of the guys that have played for us when we were at Apopka, and I know your guys at West Orange when you were there, all guys that we also probably coached at some point in summer. You know, they get to college and there's probably a junior or senior there that's in their position ready to play. But like we spoke about earlier, if they're still one of the better bats, they need to find a spot to put them in the lineup. And that gives them that leeway when they know these guys have been team players and say, "Hey coach, I'll go to left so that I can still hit 4-hole and you still have your second baseman who's playing elite defense." Or whatever the case may be.
And that's fine that you guys are saying, I hope everyone something that's consistent saying, oh, it's about the offense, it's about the bats, right?
Yeah.
But we all know, like, generically speaking, yes. But there's a value, like, you have to have different skill sets out there, right? So a lot of teams, right, hey, if we've got 6 or 7 guys that we know are going to bring the offense, then those last 3 spots, if we don't have the offense, it's about finding the defender or the other values that they can potentially bring. So this is just all of the things that I hope players and parents start, if they want to, there's a difference between asking a question, even in their mind or out loud to someone, and questioning it, right? There's a major difference between the two. And I think the knee-jerk reaction for most of them is if they don't see what's going on or understand the whys of why decisions were made, they're questioning the legitimacy of it, as opposed to finding, well, why? There's got to be an answer, what is the answer, right? So that's where it's just like, there's so many factors, and I hope people, parents and players, take a second to have a pause and go, you know what, wow, there's way more into this, like lineup construction than maybe I thought. Maybe there's way more into this formula of winning, right, than I thought. So, and that's where, because the Monday morning quarterbacks of the world, right, everyone's got the most simplest answers. Well, it's so obvious that you should do this, and it's so obvious that you should do that. When really, if it was so obvious, then why are you on that side of the fence? But you have to understand, right, and assuming you guys agree that you have to move on to the next platform, you gotta, as Last said at the beginning, make it about something bigger than just yourself, is what that is.
Yeah, if you play the game the right way, good things are gonna happen. You know, if, like we talked about in the last podcast, like, coaches want baseball players. They want guys that are going to make other guys better. How do you make other guys better? Want it for your teammate as much as you want it for yourself. You know, when that guy's in the box at bat, it should feel like you're in the box at bat. And like that stuff, when your teammates, you know, see that going on, and there's other people in the dugout see that going on, especially if you're one of those guys that are the so-called leader of the team, best player on the team, like, if you're up on that top step of the dugout when the 9-hole hitter's up there and you're just locked in every pitch and you're like, come on, man, let's go, keep battling, like, that feeds off to the rest of the team. Now, on the flip side, if you're the best player on the team and you're sitting in the corner of the dugout just kind of waiting for the inning to get over so you can get back out in the field and do your thing, like, that also feeds off on the team. So, like, the more guys you have in that leader role that are wanting it for the other team, that's when you have something special. Like when you could get every single guy on that roster to buy in, that's when you got something special. And I think Lassiter and even Dempsey in his coaching days of the high school, and I keep going back to that because it's just...
That's the purest form of baseball.
It's the purest form of baseball. You're with them a lot more every day.
There's no recruiting, so to speak. This is what you got. You battle, you go to war.
Right, and even in the travel ball, you could almost tell after the first weekend as a coach, like, okay, we got something good here. And it has nothing to do with the roster on paper.
Has nothing to do with the talent.
Nothing with the talent. It's just the group of guys you got. Do these guys, like, you could put a team together, they've never been around each other forever, and it seems like they've been playing since they were 10 years old.
I'm so happy you brought that up, right? So here's the thing, right? So Lass's team last summer, super talented roster, okay, last year, you know, have all these team success, individual accolades and awards and things that are coming across. Okay, the team that I coached in our organization, very, very talented, no doubt about it. We lost a ton of games, okay? We lost way more games than we should have won. It's like, I think 80 or 95% of that roster is committed or signed to go and play in college right now. So there was enough talent. What was the difference? Is that, like, my team failed to have that gelling together, is what it was. They didn't have that thing that brought themselves together. we had 2 or 3 guys that were those guys, but for whatever reason, the rest of them didn't follow along, right? So there's a responsibility that comes along with the players. Hence, like, if your kid's not having as much success, don't point the finger elsewhere other than maybe your son first. Because, like, as you talked about, there's a responsibility that comes with being the best player, to be a leader. But, like, a leader can't lead anyone if there's nobody to follow, right? So there's a responsibility on learning how to follow the culture that's being created by those things. So, like, here's a perfect example. My team full of college players, why did they win? Why were we not winning the close games that we should have? And I'm going to tell you the difference was that was a team environment, and ours was just kind of I wouldn't say there was like people that were like being outwardly or obviously selfish, but they weren't bought in to the greater of the team, and that's why we were lackluster with tons of talent, and they won with tons of talent. So was the only difference.
And I think some of that has to do with the age group too, which is obviously why we're trying to bring this back. I think once you get to the age group that you're with,
the older guys, 17,
the older guys,
it's crunch time recruiting.
It's crunch time recruiting. They're hearing pressure from everywhere, from the parents to themselves to the outside noise. Like, you gotta find a spot. You gotta play better. All you're doing is just setting yourself up for failure at that point. And so again, if you go back to just doing it the right way, just play the game the right way, like Jesse said, and good things are gonna happen for you. It really works. And I think sometimes when you get with those 17U guys, they hit the panic button and they lose all the stuff that got them to that point, which is playing team baseball, playing for your teammates. Back to Jesse's point about what you got. Like when we're playing, we know immediately if we're going to be in a dogfight with somebody, whether it's in the summer or the high school season, after the first 2 at bats. If I'm in the dugout and Atkins calling pitches, we strike the guy out. That guy goes out and isn't pouting. He's walking up to the 2-hole hitter and he's telling him what the pitches look like, or he's giving him some kind of intel on what happened in that at bat. You're like, okay, these guys are together, And if that first guy strikes out and he's walking the dugout with his head down, pissed off, cursing under his breath, whatever that is, I'm like, okay, we got this. It's obvious just that little things like that, which none of that has anything to do with talent that I just spoke about. But it's, hey, I just failed, but because I failed, I have some knowledge to give to this next guy so he doesn't.
That guy's going back, and he wasn't worried about that 1 at bat. He was like, hey, man, I can pass this information on to the next guy. The next guy can pass on that information. And he was more thinking about his next at bat and how he could be successful in that one and the next 8 guys hitting in front of him than being upset about himself and being selfish. Feedback, we always talk about giving feedback to your players. Like, you as a hitter can give yourself like feedback and thoughts. Like after 2 pitches, okay, this guy's trying to set me up away. Like, you should be thinking when coaches are talking about like having a plan and thinking, those are the type of things we're talking about. Like, how is this guy trying to set me up? How's he trying to pitch me? Not, oh, am I loading properly? Am I getting my foot down? Am I hinging right? And all that kind of stuff. We want more of an approach thought process and how that guy's trying to pitch you and work you process more than a technical process.
Or if you remove the emotion of what happened as a player, which is the hardest thing to do, then everything becomes usable information. Is what you're getting at, right? So if you're able to take it and I bring it in as neutral without emotions, now everything in a game becomes usable for me to be able to either make adjustments to beat that person next time it's me, or to share it onto my team, or to be able to keep beating that person with whatever information has been given me saying this is the right thing at the given time.
Yeah, I mean, you have to know, as generic as it sounds, like baseball is not a 1-inning thing. You play 7 innings for a reason. You're going to have at least 3 at-bats. So if you just let that first bat ruin your whole day, it's not good for your team. It's not good for your teammates.
As an offensive guy, I usually tell people that, like, if you get a hit in your first at bat, that's a bonus.
Yeah.
Like, you're just trying to collect information and have a quality at bat and see if he even earns it to beat you, right? Because a lot of times they'll give it to you is what it is. I'm just trying to collect information to be able to get him when it really counts, and hopefully they give it to me in the meantime. If I get a hit my first at bat, that's gravy.
Yeah, and as a team, right, you want to see his whole repertoire. Like, you do whatever you can as a lineup to get everybody. Like, I know for us, like, certain pitchers, BA or Ray, who's calling pitches for us in the summer, are trying to hold on to that changeup until we need it, or trying to hold on to that breaking ball. But when you play a good team, they foul those pitches off. What are you going to do? You're going to go to what you need to get them out. So on offense, we try to make sure that we see the whole repertoire as soon as possible. which also is a team concept. Because if you just go up there trying to say, I'm going to hit the first thing I see in the beginning of the game every single time, it's not going to benefit your offense long term if that guy's able to hold on to something, one of his better pitches.
So I'm going to pull us back out of the kind of the specifics of the game, of winning and game engagement stuff, the branch that we got onto, but which is super relevant. But talking about bringing it back and making a team, these are all examples of that. But I know, Jesse, you played for Skip at LSU, and last I know you have been using this year with your team, the bent nickel.
Yeah. For those of you who haven't seen it, all you got to do is YouTube Skip Bertman nickel speech, but basically he talks to his team. He has a stack of nickels, and he has 2 or 3 that are all bent up, and he stacks the ones that are all not bent. He says you can stack these as high as you want. You can go 20 high. I can slide them left. I can slide them right. I can move them fast.
Put them in different positions.
Put them in different spots. Put 4 here and 5 here, and they stay, and they can still move cohesively if you want to. If you have a bent nickel, you can carry 1 or 2 bent nickels. You can put them at the top, and they can just go with the other non-bent nickels. But you can't put them in the bottom. You can't put them in the middle, or what's going to happen to that stack of nickels? It's going to fall down. And we gave that speech to our kids in the beginning of the year. And sometimes you never know what's going to work when you talk to kids. They're kids, and they all really bought into it. Obviously, that's why I have this beard right now. They all wanted to dye their hair. I was like, guys, I'm too old for that. I'm not doing it. They've all realized that I only shave my beard when we lose a game. So after we win games, I always pull on my beard after my post-game speech. So they said, Coach, you got to do it. And I said, I'm not doing it. And the first thing out of their mouth is, Coach, you're going to be a bent nickel. And I said, well, hell with that. You're not going to use my words against me. So I showed up the next day, and here I am looking like, a dad bod Hulk Hogan or something. But, if you want to hold your players accountable, you have to do it to yourself. And the fact that they brought back something that we did preseason before we played a game, to me, as a team, shows that we don't have any bent nickels. And we actually sent a card home to the parents with a nickel on it. And it said, don't be a bent nickel, because in high school sports, and the same thing follows with travel ball,
college, professional baseball, anything of competition or team environment.
But a lot of this happens with the outside influence. So we sent it home because, that 10th player on your team, usually the parents pissed that he's the 10th player, because the 10th player doesn't play like the 9th player. And so we sent it home with them and said, hey, this starts at home. The kids are bought in. Usually takes about halfway through the season, and you start seeing those nickels start to bend. And this year we've been super blessed at Windermere with the parents, the players. They've all bought into it. The way that they cheer on our team, the way that we've kind of fought through adversity with some of the injuries that have happened and tragic accidents, for them to bring up the nickel, to me, with just something small like the beard. One, it meant a lot to me because it means they listened and they bought into it. But again, it just shows that team concept. And obviously, Skip is a Hall of Fame coach and athletic director for a reason. He gets people to play together, and guess what all those individuals do? They succeed.
So we look in travel ball, and we are trying to do this movement of bring it back to a team mindset. So the individual approach or mindset has come off of what do they want. So let's break that down anymore. What do they want? They want to be able to play in college, or they want to play professionally. So then they need to look at the player and the family and say, well, if I want to get there, the people that can give me that, college coaches, pro scouts, what are they looking for? They're not looking for bent nickels. No, they're looking for guys that are interchangeable. They're looking for a nickel, right, is what they are, because at the end of the day, college coaches' jobs is to win baseball games. How the best way they can win a game is if they have interchangeable nickels, is what it is. Professional baseball, they get fired if they don't win games. Same thing, they don't need any bent nickels. So if your whole thing is like, because there's like a good type of selfishness, let's call it what it is, right? I mean, it's, if I think a more appropriate way to put it is having pride in yourself as a competitor, or holding yourself to a high standard, So everyone wants players that want that, because they want to push the envelope, because that's what's going to help them win. But there's a fine line between having pride in yourself and understanding that I want to be that interchangeable nickel, that is a valuable one, that someone says, I want you to be one of my nickels to help me win, versus being selfish. Very fine line. And that's where, let's kind of talk about why this is kind of transpired, right? And in the thing that I always try to compare it to is that travel baseball and minor league baseball are the only two areas in a baseball player's career where a decision might be made pre-game or during the game based off of an individual or a few individuals versus the overall benefit of the team that day. An example in professional baseball, if a guy's a first-round draft pick and he got paid $5.5 million, if his first season in minor league baseball, he's hitting 130, are they still going to play him and probably hit him in the top 3 spots of the order? Yes, they are, because they had a lot invested into this guy, and because that they understand that it's a long-term plan. We need to give this guy a certain amount of time, and we've invested an amount to where he's a big leaguer one day. Right? The reason why there's not all these issues in minor league baseball is because you have adults and you have professionals. So they understand the responsibility that comes with that understanding that sometimes just because my teammate's hitting 130, if he's a bonus baby and I'm not, that just is what it is. I just got to keep playing, and I got to work while I wait, and I got to take most of my opportunities. Nobody pisses and moans. Nobody calls and has a meeting or any of that. So here we are in amateur baseball. So we're the same thing. Like, people are paying to play, so there's some expectations that I need to play, which we understand. But then also there's this, hey, like, I'm trying to move on to their version of the big leagues, which is the next level, which is college baseball, right? So now it's the same exact environment. So the same amount of responsibility that we ask in adults and professionals now falls on parents and teenagers. Yeah. So that's where it's a massive gap and where the issues come with that, right? So if people will take a step back and realize as travel owners, that's a lot to ask of you, right? Especially when you're dealing with your kid, right? If you're 16 years old, like I know I didn't have control over my emotions or, like I do now, or had the life perspective that I did at 16. So we're compassionate, we're understanding that like this is going to be hard for you and we're going to be here to guide you through that process. But if you don't have at least enough responsibility to have some trust and understand what your responsibility is, now you prevent us from being able to do our job. So that's where I think when people don't know what to grasp onto because they don't understand the responsibility or can't meet the responsibility that they have to have, they get desperate and they just grab onto anything possible, which is all they know is the individual.
I think one of the big things with that too is, I think our coaching staff, and obviously I think us three do a good job making sure they understand it. Like the stuff that is comparable to the minor league stuff for them is like, hey, we might get a call that XYZ coach can only come on Saturday. And we might have to alter our rotation.
Because he says, I want to see this specific guy.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And that's our job. So like, one, we think we have good enough players that they're interchangeable nickels. And we can put a guy, hey, I know you played third last game and it's this guy's turn now, but you're committed, and this is the only day they can come.
Or maybe even if you're not, your time's not now, and when it is your time, we're going to do the same thing for you.
Exactly. Or, hey, I know we sent out this rotation, guys, but, these 3 guys really wanted to see this guy pitch. They're not going to be here Sunday. So we got to flip this. And you just have to understand that eventually it's going to be your turn to be the guy that's saying, hey, man, you're going to have to pitch this day now because these guys are coming to see you.
So things I've heard whenever we've explained that to people have been like, well, why doesn't that get communicated to us then? Because if we only knew, then we would get it a little bit more, right? And maybe we'd have control of our emotions. And my answer always to that is, well, here's the thing is like, I don't want to tell you or your son because whenever in the past we've had players know that people are coming to see them, they don't play very well because they're concerned about that as opposed to just playing. So we purposely don't tell kids when we know a certain school might be showing up to watch them specifically because that's our job is to get them there. You're the one that has to play. So if we can just keep your mind on the game and the engagement, right, and the little things and the competition, then it'll take care of itself. But by them knowing that, do they have the responsibility to still separate the two? From our experience with teenagers, they don't, right? So that's the answer. So that's why it's like, it's not that we're purposely leaving you in the dark. We're leaving you in the dark based off of just trust us. They're showing up for a reason, okay? You don't need to know who they're there to see because all that does is build anxiety and performance gaps for the player. And then mom and dad, it's pretty noticeable when you're freaking out in the backside too, on the other side of the fence.
And usually the only guys that know for us are the guys that are the ones that have to make the adjustment for the other player.
Correct.
We're not going to tell that actual player that, but it's like, hey, you're not going to play third today. I know the way our rotation's been going is this, this, and this, but here's why, don't bring it up to him. We want him to just play baseball. But those people don't usually find out until after the fact, just because we want them to just worry about playing baseball.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing you said is it's trust. You have to have trust. Just like you have to have trust within a team. Like one big thing that Skip Bertman used to always talk about is the ball of trust. He used to have a little crystal ball that he gave every one of his players to keep in the locker. And that circle, that ball of trust was our team. And once one little part of it broke off, then you have a chip in the crystal ball. Another one, it becomes weaker. Now, when that crystal ball is whole, you drop it on the floor, boom, it stays together. Yeah. When it starts having little cracks in it, it hits the ground, shatters into pieces. Symbol of your team falling apart really fast like that as little pieces start to chip apart. Now, I know that's a lot harder to achieve when you have over 200 people in an organization, but that's the goal we're trying to get to, is to get everybody in this organization. It's actually going to be more like 600 if you include parents, the players, their high school coaches. Like, we need everybody involved in this. Right? Yeah, it takes a village, right? Like they say, it takes a village. Same thing with baseball. The more people you have talking good about you, the easier the recruiting is going to be. The better you're going to build your name, your brand, or whatever you're trying to do as a baseball player.
And then without getting into this, we'll go in another time, and people within our organization, we send out a lot of this information already, but like stop worrying about what you think the timeline is or putting these timelines. And we've had 3 kids commit this week that are seniors. Like, the high school season's done for two of those kids, and they just kind of got to that point. We've got 3 other kids that are seniors right now that have played in our program that have offers and are deciding, right? Like, so it's just like, you have to understand, if you have people go back and look at the interview we did with Shane Green, like Shane Green, who's in his 7th year finished his 7th year in the big leagues this past year, he didn't had a single college even opportunity until a month after he graduated from high school. And that guy's in the big leagues right now, right? So getting them to understand that all the timelines are different, and it's difficult, but you got to trust that process. And once again, when the village is still working for you after you graduated from high school, because you are that nickel, right, and you're not the bent nickel, that's when it can still come to fruition. Because when it gets down to the wire at that point, they just want to know if you're a nickel or a bent nickel. Like, that's the biggest thing they want to know.
And I'm totally confident saying it on record right now on camera, like, our number one priority is to move kids on to the next level, give them opportunity at the next level. Do we want to win ball games? Yes. Do we want to win championships? Yes. But our goal is to give kids opportunity to play at the next level at a place that they can stay at for 4 years. The winning is a byproduct of that. Like, the championships are a byproduct of that.
Absolutely. Like we talked about earlier, you do the right thing, good things happen for you as the individual, but then the team succeeds. So as long as you're doing that, leave it up to us to make sure that we're giving you or putting you in the spot to have these opportunities. And like you said, we're going to accomplish our goal by getting guys to programs that they fit and where they can play for 4 years and win games in the process, because everybody's bought in and doing the right thing.
So let's talk about another thing that has created a little bit of this individual mindset, but doesn't come from a bad place. It happened that way because of the lack of responsibility on the families, right? Is this whole massive growth, and all the players and families get inundated with all these showcases and camps, right? And because you go to a showcase or a camp as an individual, right, it's very easy, especially when you don't understand the full picture like we talked about, and have the level of responsibility of knowing what the purpose of what these are and how they fit in the grand scheme of things, is to come across as like, oh, it's about me because I did this or that. There's a huge value in these showcases and camps, like massive value, right? Like I'd say I'm not too far removed, right? I 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I was going through this, and was there a bunch of things, and were there big events? All these big events have been around for 25 years. I played in some of them, but the opportunities weren't the same, right? I didn't have the opportunity to go play in front of 25 college coaches because I paid a fee. Like, that just wasn't a thing. Yeah. So like, these are great, but then it's just about like, the problem is everyone thinks that because they go to a camp or they go to a showcase, that they're going to get some immediate like fruits of the labor, right? Or they're going to get something in general, right? So like, go on about what you guys think about the value of showcases, right? And what you actually get from them, or what's realistic to expect from them.
Yeah, well, I think that's all relevant to the person that's going. Like, just like anything else in baseball, there's no there's no cookie cutter weightlifting program. There's no cookie cutter throwing program. Just like this, there's no like cookie cutter answer for the showcases. I think that's more individual. A lot of times the player kind of knows where they stand, but if not, that's what we're here for to hey, does this showcase make sense to us to go to right now? Our kid's 15 years old. Should he be going to this? And same thing as you get older, but different things. Like some people need to be going to showcases because they have a possibility to play in an All-American game. You know, there's certain showcases you should go that you have to go to be an All-American.
And there's showcases for whatever type of player that you are, right? And
Correct.
there's timelines, right? If you are a guy that's got pros, tools, and whatnot, then that process is probably going to have to start a little earlier because there's a longer and much higher standard of evaluation process that you're going to have to go through, right? If you're the guy that's hey, you know what, like you can play college baseball somewhere, that needs to happen later, but you go to a very different circuit of events and showcases to go to, right? That's where it's like where we come in on that is to be able to, first off, when you said most players know where they're at, I would challenge that because I think most players want what they think they are or what they want with that, right? And that's where, so everyone thinks that they're an SEC, ACC, they're a draft pick, right? And you like same thing, there's a responsibility. You should always make that your goal, but don't put any emotional, stability on whether you made that or didn't of the identity of who you are or was your journey worth it is what it is, right? So us, based off of the experience and other people that are in our industry and are more than qualified with the connections and experience to be able to evaluate and say like, no, you're actually this level or you're this level, right? That's where we can kind of come in, and it evolves and it changes, right? We've had guys that as freshmen, they look like one thing, and then the next thing you know, like they're seniors and we're like, whoa, like, wow, like you're incredibly better, right? And like it is broke the ceiling of what we originally thought, but like it also happens the other way around too, right? Yeah. To where it's like, oh wow, you've got no ceiling on you, and then it gets to a certain point throughout high school, and it's like, hey, things have changed for you, right? So that's where I'm always going to throw in this whole responsibility versus opportunity, right? There's a responsibility that comes with not viewing yourself as a failure. If as an underclassman you were viewed as like this massive, like no ceiling type of guy, and if it evolved and the ceiling actually ends up being much lower as you get through high school, like you shouldn't like be upset about it, right? Like you shouldn't like be down in the dumps. You shouldn't consider quitting. None of that. Like there's still a value in enjoying the journey and just understanding that there's things you learn through the journey. It's not just about the end destination.
The biggest thing for me is like if the family has the means to send you to a showcase.
This stuff's expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive for all of it. If it's an individual school, if it's one of the New Balance or Perfect Game or Prospect Select or any of those, it's just expensive. I mean, they get the coaches there, they do all that. They all do a great job doing that. But if you have the means to go, I think as long as you go into it with basically zero expectations for a result outside of I'm getting a great experience that I can learn from, and don't go into it as if I don't leave here with an offer, then I'm a failure. Or I have to go there and get a scholarship, or I'm a failure, then I think that these things can have value. One, especially at a young age, like Jesse was talking about, maybe it's a good thing just to be in that environment, feel what it's like, to have that kind of pressure, to have, maybe if you're at an individual school's camp, to have 3 guys sitting there writing notes on you.
The head coach.
Yeah. The head coach, the recruiting coordinator, all these guys that sit there and be writing notes, 20 feet next to you while you're taking batting practice. I think that there's some value in feeling that out at a younger age. So maybe it doesn't matter necessarily right now what the result is, but in 2 years when maybe
it is your time, you need to be comfortable to be able to perform in that environment.
You're walking into those environments and it's just another day, So I do think there's definitely some big value to that. Where it comes hard for me is when you have guys who are juniors or going to be seniors, whatever the case may be. And they're like, hey, I'm going to go to Tennessee, I'm going to go to Florida, and I'm going to go, to Florida State. And, we have to, kind of handle it with gloves to a certain extent. And be like, hey, man, like, you realize, like, those schools' classes are pretty much done for your age group. Like, not going to tell you.
And they're never, like, really ever done, but, like, they're not actively searching at that time.
So, like, realize that, it's, that's the situation where you always talk about the lotto ticket. Like, hey, I buy lotto tickets all the time. my number's always, if it's over 100 million, I'm comfortable spending $5.
But you don't quit your job and put your financial stability because you know that you have the winning lottery ticket here.
But I'm willing to spend my $5 to see if I win 100 million, which I don't know why I'm not willing to spend $5 to win 50 million, but that's just me. My number's 100 million, I buy Powerball.
And we use that analogy because that's really what's going on with these players and families when they go to these events, not just financially, but more so emotionally.
Yeah.
Like they really are putting up all of their emotions and all of their identity on themselves. And when they don't get anything immediately, I mean, it is total identity crisis.
Yeah, just realize you buy the lotto ticket so that when you wake up in the morning, you get the adrenaline rush to see what the numbers are. And hey, guess what? If the numbers aren't mine, I'm not going to drive my truck off a bridge because I didn't win. I'm just like, oh damn, I lost.
There was at least
$5.
a value in the fact that you got excited about something. I thought at least having the chance or the opportunity alone should be enough to feed your appetite to a degree.
So really, I guess my biggest point on going to the showcases, whether it's the actual kind of tournament series showcases or
the college
camps, is going into it for the experience. Expect nothing. It's always great to hope for something, but never expect it.
And that's
It's
what
like
I
I never buy the lotto ticket going home saying, honey, quit your job because I got all the numbers tomorrow. Don't go to work tomorrow because I know I'm winning. And if you go into a showcase with that thought process, you're going to end up very disappointed.
Yeah, and that's where, the message that you had told all of our people internally at our organizational meeting a few months ago was, expect nothing and appreciate everything.
Yeah.
Anything that you do get, just appreciate it. But if you got, the thing is we've got it flopped, right? Or the common family going through this amateur baseball process has got it flopped. They expect everything and only appreciate the top shelf type of feedback, that's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, understand that also that a lot of times what happens is, say keeping up with the Joneses or whatnot, but you have a friend who goes to a camp and gets an offer. And then everybody they know thinks, that's what I got to do. And it goes back to your time.
Or I played with him, so why shouldn't I have those same opportunities? It's not transferable like that.
Or I throw just as hard as he does. That means they should offer me.
When I was 12, I hit 3-hole and he hit 9-hole, right? Like that's.
And what people need to understand from that recruiting aspect, when people are comparing themselves to other people, just because the velocities are the same, a team doesn't want 8 pitchers that all look the same. They want different angles. So, if they already got 2 guys that throw over top at 90 miles an hour, and your son throws 92 miles an hour from up top, they're probably going to pass on him for a guy that throws 89 from a low 3/4 slot.
Yeah.
Or
and it goes back to there's a lot of things that people don't know that goes on.
Going into that too,
in the process.
They think, certain levels are conference. Well, I play with this guy and he's going here, so the rest of the schools in that conference should be interested in me, right? Well, no, because every schools have different styles of play, is what it is, right? To where there's some programs that value velocity and it's power. And then there's other programs that are just hey, that's important to have, but I don't want just that, like you said. I want a mixed bag of different things. So that's where, once again, there's a responsibility of understanding that it's not always transferable, that just because there's some parallels with you and another player and his journey is taking him here, that means that my journey is definitely going to look the same or very, very similar.
That falls into the divisions of play too. I mean, when Jesse and I were in Chicago at the coaches convention, we're talking to a college coach in Pennsylvania, Division II school. Most people in Florida would have no idea. Demps knows who they are. You think, well, my son throws 91 miles an hour. That means he's a Division I.
Division I guy.
Division I guy.
100%, right?
Yeah, Jesse and I are talking to him. Chopping it up a little bit, learning about how he does things. Division II school in Pennsylvania now. They have 11 guys throwing 94 miles an hour or harder. But my son throws 91 miles an hour. He's a Division I. No, man. No. And guess what? Those guys at that school are going to get drafted.
Yeah.
And he does a great job coaching baseball. And so sometimes you have to put some of those goggles away too and just think there's these certain benchmarks that if I hit this mile per hour, this exit velo, or I run this 60, that means I'm a Division I player.
That's a perfect example of, do you expect nothing and appreciate everything, or do you expect everything that you want and appreciate only those things?
And it goes back to control what you control. We just told you guys all these circumstances that come into a coach's decision other than just being a good baseball player.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be a good baseball player that can play at that level and fit their program and fit their needs.
And
Like, it's not a
academics.
clean slate all
Under
the
the
time, like when you
timeline
do a
that they
fantasy
need.
draft.
Because
Like,
their needs
you already have
vary.
money spent, you already have positions taken. Like, it's kind of like plugging into place, and like every guy needs different things. So it should be even more reason after us having this talk that the least thing that players should be worrying about is doing things for the schools
Yeah.
and measurables and all that. It should be strictly win baseball games and be the best baseball player I
Compete,
could be.
go about things the right way.
You know?
Absolutely.
And do the extra things we're talking about. Being a leader, like, you know, being focused in the dugout. Those things do make a
I'm gonna even
huge
say
difference.
sometimes
Huge
like
difference.
sometimes like not even being a leader, but being a good follower to an extent, right? You know, like there is that as well, because you can't have all Chiefs. You can't, you know, you can't have that.
And I mean, when you get to college, I mean, I'm sure there's some out there, but when you show up as a freshman on campus, you're not walking in there saying, "Hey guys, follow me.
Yeah,
I'm the guy. I'm the freshman."
you got to do it.
No, so, you know, some of the best leaders had to learn how to be followers first. So if you skip that step, then it's really hard to actually.
I don't know many people that are the CEO or the boss or the head boss that didn't have an entry level position within that industry or that thing.
Yeah,
So it's the same thing.
absolutely.
So yeah, so let's give some kind of any final thoughts that you guys have on this. Like I said, part of what, you know, the whole purpose of this isn't just this one conversation. We're hoping that this one conversation is going to open up the eyes, and we're kind of talking about what everything in people in baseball talk about behind the scenes. And they say, I wish I could stand on top of a mountaintop and scream this. So we're kind of being the whistleblowers, right, in a good way, to say, hey, our customers, our people, you don't get it, okay, but we're being very respectful. And if you start to listen to this stuff, then you will get it and you will prosper individually. You'll have a better journey, a better experience, and be way more satisfied with the destination or destinations that you end up at, right? Like, that's our whole purpose. So we want this to be an ongoing thing, because this isn't supposed to be just like an educational topic. This is hopefully us ringing the bell, saying who else wants to come along with us to get all of the people to buy in. Very common thing that's been coming up, of saying, you know what, let's bring it back and make all avenues of baseball, including travel ball, which has some individual aspects to it like minor league baseball, to go ahead and bring back that team first mentality and feel and culture.
I mean, the biggest thing for me, the easiest way to put it is play the game the right way, play for your teammates, and know that your individual success will follow. Just keep the blinders on, and if that's your thought process at all times, no matter if you're 0 for 5 or 5 for 5, or if you're currently the hottest player on the team or the coldest bat on the team, continue to do things the right way, play for your teammates, listen to your coach's guidance, and your individual success will follow. It's just a formula that works. We've seen it through our playing days, and we all played at different times, but we've all been on bad teams, we've all been on good teams. And I can say that the good and the great ones all had that. The team plays for each other, and those teams have a lot of individuals that have success because of it.
I want to go back to your story about the bent nickels, and because that got me fired up. Because that's the kind of stuff that gets me fired up, is when teams really gel like that. Because I mean, those are the teams that win championships. Yeah. Those are the teams that you remember. And even if they don't win, those are the ones you remember as a person till the day you die. Yeah. Like, you're like, God, I love that team. I wish I could have them all the time, you know. But
I mean,
my thing is, what got me fired up was when you said at the end of the year they threw it back on you. They're like, do your beard, this and that. And you know what happened because of that is that team created an identity.
Yeah.
And another thing that goes along with great teams, they all have identities. Go back to when Eckstein played for the Angels. I always think about the Rally Monkey. Remember, they had the Rally Monkey. They had an identity. We had teams we had the ill squad. We had a couple years ago, Jelani Roberts used to carry around a broken bat, the handle of bat. He brought it to every game, and that was like our Thor hammer because he hit a home run and broke his bat, and that like carried us through the whole season. Like, I challenged all these teams to create an identity for your team. Yep. You know, I challenge our coaches to help your teams create some type of identity and cohesiveness. And the results are going to show, guys, like individually and as a team, they're going to show.
You know, it's funny as you say that. I'm thinking about all of our battles that we had, which really caused us to become good friends and end up doing this power baseball thing, you know, when we originally started. But I remember your guys, when you guys had your bleached hair stuff, and you guys did that. And then our 14 team, we had the little blue darted club head cover that we carried on the bat
like
everywhere.
Pedro
Serrano.
Like Pedro
That's for bats.
Yeah, and then you know, my guys now have the sledgehammer. That after they hit the homer, you know. Which,
we had Virginia Tech started that last year. They're top 5 in the country
that stuff
right now.
brings teams together, and that was a big part of what Skip always used to talk about, is like trying to process and bringing teams together, like being a unit. And like understanding the process and not just being all about the results.
I mean, even the little stuff, I mean, we used to use it to try to get our guys motivated, but even when you guys were at West Orange, your startup, whenever you guys did the whole weave, you know, that's an identity. You guys were locked in from the very beginning before you started stretching, because they were about to do that, which was essentially all team coordinated. They all were in unison doing something, which, how's that not going to bring you together?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
Like, it starts you off, like, right there, it's fun. Like, you're not thinking about it being 100 degrees out and 8 o'clock in the morning and playing some team you know you're going to blow their... Like, it makes it fun, and it keeps you engaged and locked in, you know?
I will say this. We brought that hammer out. I think the most home runs we've had at Windermere in a season was 5. We're currently at 24 this year.
Because they wanted to grab that hammer. Everybody on that team wanted to grab that hammer. They wanted to say, I got to swing that hammer when they're hanging out with their buddies 10 years down the road at Ale House.
And there's no TrackMan, there's no, chart that can prove that the hammer had that. But you know what it is that your players and your staff believes that has an impact to it, because that's what it matters, right? It's the law of attraction of this. If I believe something, then I'm going, and I have conviction towards that, then I have that much better of a chance of making it become a reality, is what it is. So it's got to have an identity from what I'm picking up, or a thing, or whatever, a mantra to bring a group together. And then it takes a commitment and a conviction to make that idea into a reality onto the field, and to help performance is what that is. Teams that have something to hang their hat on and have conviction towards are always going to have a competitive edge versus a team that isn't convicted towards something, as far as a team unity type of environment.
Yeah, just like our arms on our 24, they were like dominant all summer. Obviously, you can tell by record, which we also hit really well too. But our pitchers all kind of got together. You know, it was when the sword thing really started getting hot. Everybody singing sword or Espada or whatever the thing. One day in Atlanta, like, we kept saying, like, quit doing this. Like, why don't we get something? Next day, we show up on, not one of the big fields. We show up, and our pitchers went to Walmart or something. They came out with some, big plastic sword, and every time they did it, the guys would go out in the dugout and swing the sword when somebody took one. And I don't think that's disrespectful. It's not like we're screaming it to the other team or we're doing anything like that. It's really just to get our guys excited for each other.
And there's that fine line between having fun and making it a joke or clowning, right? Yeah. And obviously the fun is dictated by what happens in the game, is what it is, right?
Yeah, we're down 13, we're not going to swing the sword.
Or like, hey, like, if you're not striking anyone out, you're not going to swing the sword either, right? So that's where it's just like, there's that, once again, I'm going to go back to that word, there's a responsibility there that the players understand, or that the culture that the coaches have created within your environment, of understanding that we can have this fun as long as X happens on the field from a performance standpoint. There's a responsibility. There's a responsibility that goes with every part of this process, and it's from emotional to financial to our time and everything involved, to other people's time and investment in this process. So having that responsibility is what allows us to be able to have fun, have a great team environment, and be able to help individuals prosper alongside that. Hopefully everybody enjoyed everything we talked about today. Just for some stuff internally, I hope everyone has following the emails, because not only do we send out a lot of good educational information on topics different every month like this, but also on top of it, there's lots of pertinent information you need for the summer, like downloading band, making sure you're registering for the New Balance Future Star Series Scout Day coming up. All that stuff is kind of on a timeline to make sure you're kind of following those things and being prompt with those things. So, we are excited, and you'll be hearing from us here real soon.